everyone, I hope you're all doing really well. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my 10th update for my Pan That palette for 2020. I started working on this palette right here back last October. This is the Kat Von D Shade and Light Eye palette, and I've now been working on it for 11 months, which is wild to think about. I can't even believe that it's been nearly a year since I started this project Pan. If you're not familiar with the reasons why I chose this palette or any of my progress throughout this project so far, I definitely recommend that you go and check out the playlist. However, I'm going to share with you on the screen now what my palette was looking like in my last month's update, because I really want to be able to compare what it is looking like now, and it is definitely looking very different than it was last update. So here is what my palette is looking like today. As I said, very different from my last update. Some of it was intentional, some of it was not. I do have to preface it with that. And it also has been well over a month since my last update to this project. I've just kind of been putting off my update because I just haven't really had the time in my schedule to sit down and just talk about this palette, even though these updates are very, very short. I'm trying to get back into the groove of being a student and working, all from while doing it from home and trying to make YouTube videos in addition to that. I've just been kind of trying to figure out that transition and how I'm going to accomplish everything I want to. But that's not really relevant to what we're talking about today. I do just want to talk about what the palette actually looks like itself. As you can see, there are 3 empty pans in here now, 2 of which I did actually finish up. The third one was a experiment and then a mishap. So how about we just talk about that one first, since it's probably the most notable thing, and it is this shade right here. This was the shade Chamel, which I did have pan on, and I did decide after finishing up this shade called Ludwin, which was the most beautiful peachy shade, that I wanted to use Chamel to kind of try to use as a base to create a light transition shade. And so I mixed in a little bit of the white shade, which is called Liberatus, and I mixed in a little bit of this just to add a hint of warmth. This one is called Succubus, in addition to Chamel. And I sat down to film this video 2 days ago. I'll insert a clip if I still have it. I'm not sure if I've deleted it. Oh no! It literally just broke. Oh no. So I don't know what just happened. I had just pulled the palette down in front of me for a second and this shade completely broke and jumped out of the palette. So this is what it was. Oh my gosh, I'm a mess. Let's try that again. So, golly. So it's probably really hard to see, and I broke it again, but this is what it did look like. I'm not missing it because, quite honestly, that shade did not turn out how I had envisioned it to be. It turned out very, very similar to this shade right here, which is called Lazarus, and I had no intentions of actually using it once I saw the final result. I think there was just too much of the brown, the initial base color. What I should have done was scraped out a little bit of that and used this empty pan here to press a custom shade into, not using the entirety of Chamel. But yeah, all of that aside, that was a total mishap, and when it fell out of the pan, I was filming this update, and I just got so flustered that I couldn't continue the update. So that's why we're here with a fresh attitude. I just got really, really overwhelmed. It had been kind of a crazy day for me, so when I filmed that and that happened, I just got kind of overwhelmed and I didn't really know how to approach the remainder of the video, and I thought I might be a little bit negative, so I just decided to stop filming. But let's talk about the progress that I'm really, really proud of actually, and that is that I finished up these 2 large pans right here over this past I'm gonna say it was probably 40 days since my last update. But I finished up the shade Lattice, which was a beautiful light, almost pastel yellow shade, a light banana color, and it was just perfect for brightening up under my eyes as well as for setting eyeshadow primer or concealer on my lids. And that's how I finished it up. I flew through it because it was perfect for me when I had more of my summer tan. I am definitely losing it now, but it was just perfect on my skin to really brighten up my under eyes, and I am actually really missing having that shade in my repertoire at the moment. But I'm holding off on buying something comparable because I don't think that I necessarily need it. It just was an added step that I think was nice to have at the time, but I don't know if it makes a huge difference. I did really enjoy using it though. And then I also finished up the shade Ludwin, which was a gorgeous like orange peach sort of transition shade for my complexion. I also used it as a blush. I loved using it as a blush, and that's how I ended up finishing it off, but I did use it basically to start up most of my warm tone eyeshadow looks, and I've said that many times throughout this project pan. So I'm so happy I finished up both of those this past month or so, and then this one was just an absolute oopsie in every single way. When I made the Franken shadow, like my own custom shadow in here, I totally fudged it up, and then I probably, well, obviously I didn't press it properly, so it just flew out of the pan. And so yeah, this was just a major fail. Looking at the rest of the palette, I don't feel like I've had major significant changes to the rest of the palette. However, I've now started focusing on using up this shade right here, which is called Lucius. I've started focusing on using that to set down my eyeshadow primer. That's what I used it for today, and I think I will be able to finish that off relatively soon because it's not like the most firmly pressed eyeshadow in this palette. And I'm still focusing on trying to hit pan in this one right here called Sytry. It's really slow going because this is very pigmented. I barely have to tap my brush into it to get the desired effect that I want. As you can see today, I do have it on my lids, but I don't have it as intense as it can be. I really just like barely tap my brush into it, and I used it to kind of blend out the orange that's in the Zulu palette, which is in my Pan Those eyeshadows. So I kind of meshed the two colors together to create my transition shade and my lower lash line shade. And I barely need to use any products, so this is very slow going, like unbelievably slow going, but I still do want to hit pan on it. There's a little bit of a dip happening in there. And then the other notable changes are these two shades right here. Because I did use them to create my Franken shadow, I ended up scraping these out, and so they do look different, although I haven't really reached for them a ton. I have been reaching for this shade, which is called Succubus. Now that we're going into fall, I'm really drawn to this shade again, and I've just been really enjoying incorporating it into warm toned looks. I do have a little bit of it in my look today as well. And I really do eventually want to hit pan on Shacks. I'm not sure if that's going to happen for me because I'm not gonna lie, I haven't been making the most effort to actually attain that goal. So I'm not so sure that that's going to happen for me, but I have been enjoying incorporating it into looks on occasion and just trying to remember to reach for it. So I do have to admit that now that I've used up like these three shades right here, this palette isn't as versatile or as everyday friendly for me as it once was, because the remainder of the shades, although there are these two light shades, they are very deep, and I don't tend to do like super deep eyeshadow looks, so I can reach for them very sparingly, and I can use them often, but very sparingly. So I feel like the amount of progress I can make on the rest of the palette is going to be very slow and very minimal. But I do want to focus on this palette for the rest of 2020. However, no matter what it looks like by the end of 2020, whether or not I've hit pan on anything new or not, I do think that I am going to declutter it at that point because I've been using this so often. I have been not neglecting my other shadows, but I've come to realize that focusing on a Pan That palette, or maybe a Pan That palette of this style, I don't think it's for me. But I kind of want to see it through and finish it up as much as I possibly can by the end of this year. I'll definitely be able to finish up this shade. I'm really hoping to hit pan on here, and then the white I think I'd also like to focus on trying to hit pan on as well. So the palette may not change a ton throughout the remaining 3 months of 2020, but it may. I don't know. We'll see if I feel reinvigorated and re-inspired to reach into this. But truly, I don't know what this palette is going to end up looking like after 3 more months of use, because if we've learned anything in 2020, it's that you can't predict anything. You truly can't predict anything this year. So who knows? I may end up reaching for this far more often than maybe I would have anticipated, but we shall see. I guess it all kind of depends on what focus shades I'm working on in my Pan those eyeshadows for the next few months as well. That will definitely make a difference on how much progress I can make in this palette. My weight numbers have definitely fluctuated because I did throw out that shade that fell out of the palette. So my numbers are a little bit weird, but how about we go through some numbers now? So currently the palette is weighing in at 208.38 grams. However, I did weigh that single eyeshadow when I was about to throw it out because I'm super committed to this weight thing apparently. And the eyeshadow itself weighed 2.18 grams. Last month, the palette as a whole was weighing in at 213.56 grams, and that was on August 12th. Now today is September 25th, so we're 13 days later on it. Yeah, it's weighing in at 208.38 grams, which is a difference of 5.18 grams. However, if I take away that 2.18 of the eyeshadow that I didn't use, apparently I used 3 grams of product over this past, like, I guess 43 days. That seems wild. I don't know if that's true. Like, that just seems crazy to me, but based on what it weighed last month, what that eyeshadow weighed, and what it weighs now, apparently I used 3 grams of product. I mean, I did finish up those 2 large pans, and then obviously in repressing products, you do lose a little bit of product. So yeah, apparently 3 grams of product was used over the past month and a half. Let's be real, it was not a month. But yeah, that's everything for today's video. I know it got a little bit rambly towards the end. The numbers are semi-interesting, but also I don't know how I feel about weighing palettes anymore. Like, I think if I was to continue doing a Pan That palette in the future, which I don't think it's for me, I think I've come to realize Pan That palette is probably something I'm not going to do next year. But I probably wouldn't continue to weigh palettes, because if I did want to eliminate an eyeshadow that didn't make sense for me, or I want to add new eyeshadows into the palette, the weight would just fluctuate all the time. There would be no way to really track that consistently unless I kept the palette exactly as it was and only used eyeshadows from it and never added anything new to it, which I just don't know if that's how I want to pan palettes in the future. But I definitely do want to continue with my Pan Those Eyeshadows series because I feel super motivated and very successful with that project. With this one, I did initially feel very successful and I was very motivated to work on it, and now seeing the state of where the palette's at for the time being, it doesn't feel as motivating or as exciting or as inspiring as it once did. So I don't know if Pan That palette is for me, but we're gonna... Okay, I gotta wrap this up because I'm just like rambling like crazy now, but that is everything for today's video. Thank you so much for watching and for hanging out with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone.